Welcome back to Fast Market here on the TD Ameritrade Network. I'm Tom White, joined by my co-host for the day, and that's Shawn Cruz. But let's bring in our next guest for our hashtag segment. That's going to be Andy Swan, the co-founder of LikeFolio. Welcome back to the show, Andy.
Hey, thank you. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. Now, you played college basketball. Were you that big guy that was down on the post where you should be, or were you that guy hanging out by the three-point line chucking them up?
It depends on if it was practice or a game. If it was a game, I played my role straight, but in practice, I always felt like I was a 2 or 3 man trapped in a 5-man's body.
You guys love chucking those threes up. All right,
Yes.
Andy, let's get into discussion. Dick's Sporting Goods, it's been under pressure, but not that much. It's outperforming the overall market, only down about 4%. It seems like they've lost a lot of their competition in this space. What kind of data are you guys seeing out of LikeFolio on Dick's Sporting Goods?
Yeah, it's really a mixed bag on this company. We're seeing from a macro perspective, when we look at big drivers of foot traffic into Dick's Sporting Goods, we're talking about hunting, we're talking about kids sports leagues, and both of those, we're seeing a really nice renewed demand and interest from the public this year on a year-over-year basis. Significant gains in both hunting and kids sports leagues, which are real. Those are the drivers that get people to go into the store, especially at the last minute. They need a new glove for their kid, or they need something for the hunting trip coming up. So we think foot traffic probably pretty good at Dick's overall. The one area that's giving us some pause, on Dick's Sporting Goods right now is actually the online segment, the e-commerce segment. We're seeing a fairly significant dip, 11% down year over year for the month of October, which is typically a pretty key month as we get, kicking off this holiday season in this fourth quarter. And we're seeing Dick's just kind of being outperformed by rivals in terms of that e-commerce play. And so it's really a mixed bag. I think they're doing okay on foot traffic. I think their revenue will come in fine. I'm a little bit worried about what they have to say on the online side of things, especially as they give their forward guidance. I think that could come up a little bit short, because you have to remember with Foot Locker unexpectedly, really beating expectations with savvy inventory management last week. All of these stocks got a boost last week, and I'm not sure that Dick's can get over the high bar that has been set by Foot Locker and others in the space.
You stole my question I was going to ask you, Andy. I was going to ask you if there's anything we're taking away from Nike, Foot Locker. I mean, they're in a little bit more of a concentrated focus space where you just mentioned a lot of the other areas that Dick's in. But, I mean, should we be looking at maybe some other companies out there in the retail space? Give us something like a Kohl's, give us an idea of people's willingness to get out, get in stores, and spend?
Yeah, I think when we look at Cabela's or Academy Sports or Hibbett Sports, we see the same type of macro trends impacting those companies positively. Some of those are privately held, but we do look at that versus Dick's. And I will say that Dick's, was really doing a very good job outperforming each of those until about the last month. Something negative has happened. We haven't been able to figure out if it was a sports season change that might have done it, or what the reason was for things kind of falling off for Dick's in the last month or so to kind of kick off this fourth quarter. But it does give me concern that the company won't be able to provide really exciting guidance, which I think they need to provide if they're going to get another leg up after what happened last week.
Yeah, and Andy, on your chart where you're seeing the 11% dip year over year in U.S. web visits for Dick's Sporting Goods and returning users, that kind of sticks out to me, because aren't we seeing more foot traffic in stores now as people pull back? We heard it from Amazon, right? People aren't buying as much as they were. Is this something where they could actually surprise us and say, oh, our foot traffic was great, but our web store sales actually took a hit due to that?
Yeah, I think that's probably right. I think that it may just be the mix of the way that the consumer shops. When we look at Dick's overall and we go into this earnings report, our earnings score at LikeFolio is just slightly negative. We think that after last week's pop on Foot Locker, The stock just kind of due for a pullback. We don't see any reason to be overly scared about things. We just don't think that the company can come out and say everything that we're doing is working amazingly, because I do think that there is some softness in the e-commerce side of the business, which, Wall Street never wants to hear any softness, no matter if it's a mix problem or if you're just coming up short. At this point, we've seen Wall Street kind of want to see everything working in order to buy up a stock in this market. It's very different than it was a year ago.
Yeah, and just real quick here, Andy, as far as consumer spending habits, right? We've seen some, winners and losers in this space as far as earnings goes, and it seems like some of the high-end names, and I'm not sure as Dick's fits into that, it seems like mid to high level as far as pricing goes. Is that maybe going to be cannibalized because people are trading down and spending down, even though they might afford Dick's? The inflationary pressures are putting strains on them where, hey, maybe I don't need that new sweatshirt that's $90 at Dick's Sporting Goods. I can buy it on Amazon for $30.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think only the company is going to be able to answer that for us. I do think that's a concern that Wall Street has. I also think, as we go into this, it's going to be very interesting to listen to the company talk about their inventory, because I think that's the biggest thing that was a relief in the Foot Locker report, is that company actually figured out a better way to manage its inventory and not have such an anchor on its financials. Yeah. And, quite frankly, LikeFolio doesn't have much insight into how well the company is managing those expenses and that inventory. What we can say is that demand for Dick's Sporting Goods products pretty good for the quarter prior that they're going to report on, but we're seeing some softness going into the important fourth quarter, so we think the outlook might be a little bit tempered.
Right, and it's all about execution from these CEOs at this point, it seems like, in the retail space, and you guys are neutral to slightly bearish on this according to your earnings score, right?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, great stuff. As always, Andy, appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Yep, you too. That's Andy Swan, the co-founder of LikeFolio, breaking down the Dick's Sporting Goods data for us here. Shawn,